When a family member has a mood disorder, bipolar disorder, or FOH, they don't face the illness alone. This is especially true in the case of children and teens. While there can be no doubt that the individual who has the disorder has the primary struggle, it's also true that the illness's impacts have a ripple effect that touch everyone in the family in a unique way. In this video, we're going to talk about how childhood onset mental illness can affect the family unit. So first, some basics. We all know that families are made up of individuals, but just as a house is more than the sum of the nails, wood, and paint that goes into its walls, so too is a family more than just the sum of the individuals in it. Families are more like a team, with each individual serving a purpose, fulfilling a role, or completing tasks that help the team as a whole survive and thrive. When a change occurs with one teammate, or in this case, one member of the family, those changes have an effect on the whole family system. The idea of considering families to be their own unique systems, the term family system, and the psychological theory associated with it were first developed by a psychiatrist named Murray Bowen, whose work in the 1950s created this new way of thinking about familial relationships and about how to understand and provide therapy to families. Bowen's theory frames families as emotional units with complex social and relational interactions that are active all of the time. Those interactions are happening across every different relationship pairing in all different directions across the family, like spokes on a wheel. This continual back and forth amongst family members serves to connect family members to one another emotionally, intensifying those familial bonds. Now, when we look at the actual relationships that specific individuals have with their specific families, we see a lot of variation. Those bonds may or may not be viewed positively, and the feelings people have about their families and family members may make them feel close to their family, estranged from them, or somewhere in between. In any case, these feelings significantly impact the way family members think about, feel about, and interact with each other. In ideal circumstances, we expect our families to provide us with attention, support, and approval, while we're simultaneously reacting to other members of our family and their ups and downs, needs, and expectations. Being connected in this way keeps us emotionally dependent on one another, which probably helped us evolutionarily by strengthening the bonds within the family, increasing cooperation and cohesiveness, and therefore increasing the family's chances of survival. However, this teamwork is threatened when tension, anxiety, and stress invade individuals, because by extension, those feelings are going to be spread to the rest of the family. Because, as with any system, when change happens in one part, it forces change in all the other parts of the system as well. But the easiest way to think about this is that nothing really ever happens to only one member of a family. Every action has a ripple effect, and that ripple impacts the entire family system and each individual in it. An example of this that most everyone can understand would be when a child in a family has a chronic physical illness, like a deathly peanut allergy or type 1 diabetes. Everyone in the family knows what to look out for, how to help, and what the impact of exposure or low blood sugar might be. And if a crisis occurs, everyone in the family is affected. But even though we know that mental illness shouldn't be treated any differently from physical illness, due to stigma and denial, we tend to forget that there's a similar ripple effect when it comes to mental illness and moments of crisis, or destabilization, or even day-to-day management impacts in profound ways both the individual with the illness as well as the other members of the family unit. The person with the mental illness is, by the very nature of the illness, going to be the person impacted by the mood disorder or other mental health challenge they face. Oftentimes, especially in childhood, and partly because of the fact that there's so much misdiagnosis and there's so much delay before a child gets the right diagnosis and treatment plan in place, their role in the family can develop into what's called the identified patient. This means that everything the child does is filtered through the lens of their illness, and they are perpetually seen as the family member who is needy, dependent, and less capable. Parents and other family members find that there's an impact on them because of this, and that their roles are adjusted as they focus more time, energy, attention, and worry on the child with the mental illness or on their symptoms, which impacts not only that child, but everyone in the family system around them. The result of this is a bit counterintuitive and might actually result in the child or teen becoming more reactive, more needy, more dependent on the parents or the family as a whole. This effect may also make it necessary for other children or members of the family to take on additional responsibilities, obligations, and physical and psychological chores in order to compensate for the ill child and preoccupied parents. This makes it more difficult for each member of the family to differentiate themselves from the group and to establish themselves as individuals within the family unit, balancing the natural need to be both interdependent and independent at the same time. All of this is to explain why family members' mental illness isn't only their own. It impacts everyone in the family system. Everyone who lives in the household is affected by the person's symptoms, and they impact not only the individual's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, but the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of everyone else in the family too. This, in turn, changes the way that everyone else interacts with the other people in their lives. This can include extended family members like aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents, as well as people who are technically outside of the family, such as friends, coworkers, and community members. When members of the extended family, friends, and community are unable to grasp the difficulties that families with mental illness face in their daily lives, it creates an environment of isolation for the family. Even worse, when resentments are felt within the family unit, individual family members feel not only isolated from their outside social relationships, but they can feel isolated from the other members of their immediate family as well. Parents of children and teens with mental illness can feel isolated from their own parents and siblings as their roles change, and they find themselves often being openly criticized or questioned about their decisions and their parenting of a child with mental health struggles. Parents feel isolated by this lack of understanding and support from the people who they've counted on to be on their side. Many extended family members attempt to step in to help, but pre-existing roles within the extended family often serve to reduce the effectiveness and helpfulness of those gestures. And when this happens, it leads to families who are living with mental illness to have to also cope with emotional isolation. In these circumstances, the intensity of and pressure on the relationships within the immediate family become even more intense. This additional pressure causes stress and tension that increase the likelihood of not only conflict, but also increase the prevalence of anxiety and depression. But don't despair. Now that you understand the impact that these mental health challenges are having on you and your family, you can begin to release the pressure and address issues as they arise. understanding their connection to the mental illness. Finding a support network amongst those who live with similar challenges can be a lifeline for families and parents as they realize that they're not alone in these experiences. They are not the cause of their problems, and that there are people who have walked this path before and blazed this trail already. Within these supportive communities, parents and patients can discover the resources, information, and support they've lacked, allowing the pressures on their family relationships to ease, leaving room for more love and understanding. Later in our family series, we'll focus more specifically on the patient, the parents, and the siblings. If you valued this and our other videos, please consider making a contribution to our work at www.cmhrc.org/donate.